the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. First, let me offer a word of thanksgiving to all of you for your faithfulness in and through this parish and cathedral church. A word of thanks to Dean Tom and his leadership and helping all of us wrestle with difficult questions about what it means to be faithful in this time of life on this planet, not only as a parish and as a cathedral, but knowing that you're not alone, as the whole diocese is wrestling with these questions, as is the entire Episcopal Church, and if you want to go beyond that to any so-called mainline denomination in this country. It's all across the board. And so, if nothing else, we know that we're in this with many others struggling with the same things. And I appreciate some of the bold thinking that is coming out of all of you and the leadership here, and trust that we're doing this in mutual support and love as we all had a chance again to imagine what it is to be a faithful people in this diocese in this time. So we'll see, won't we? And even as we do this work, we discover in today's gospel Jesus' agonizing pathos in his own cry of protest and grief as he laments over one of his loves. And we hear it in, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem." And I can only guess that that grief must be rooted in the years of engagement that he had with the people of that city in worship and in study on a regular basis, along with his great hope for what Jerusalem and its people were called to be as God's vehicle of hope for the world. Jesus saw Jerusalem for all it had been, and also for all that it yet could be. That's what a good prophet does. That's what a good priest does, a good deacon does, a good bishop does, and that is point to all that God is yet calling us to be. What Jesus has found here, however, is his contemporaries' rejection of the message of the kingdom. Their refusal of a last chance to avert the catastrophe of national destruction. Revealed here is Jesus' deep sense of identification with God's wisdom as he breaks out in the cry again of today's gospel, "How often have I desired to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing." Right there, right in those words, is the tension caused by what I might call dual citizenship. In this case, being citizens of the world and our particular realities on this planet, next to Paul's reminder in Philippians that our citizenship is in heaven. Jesus himself had to minister within the structures of Rome as administered by that fox, the tricky and sly Herod Antipas. But what Jesus always does is he sees beyond the evil destructiveness of the power holders to the worth of the people caught in it. And as Abram did in Genesis today, Jesus radically trusts in God's future. For ultimately, it is God's mission that will prevail, not the actions of Herod, along with the violence and exploitation of Rome that he represents. And it's precisely there that you and I find our hope. Jesus will not allow Herod or any other Herods of the world to impede his kingdom vision, and sets his sights on Jerusalem, knowing that it is there his mission is to be accomplished. The reward is a gift of grace to those who trust in God's promise. Jesus knows the story of Abraham and Sarah backwards and forwards. Yahweh promises that Abram's line of heirs would continue in ways completely unexpected and completely unimagined. Abraham couldn't have seen that. Everything else indicated otherwise. Yet the promise is given, your heirs will number as the stars in heaven. And in the same way, Jesus puts his whole trust in God. And like Abram, he understands faith as hope for the future, born out of all things, the barrenness of the past. A shadow of Good Friday and Easter to come. The call today for us is to trust in God's promises for the future. We do this as a cathedral as we reimagine together what God is calling us to be and become. And we do this as an entire diocese. And we do this work not knowing what it's going to be. Abram does not know fully what will come, nor does Jesus. What is resolute is the path to the wilderness, to Jerusalem. And it is with this hope that I am able to continue to pray with expectation. It's the only way I know how to pray. Being myself a citizen of this world as well as a citizen of heaven, almost every day, nearly every day, I pray for God's seeds of righteousness and peace to be sown in Syria, Somalia, the Sudan, Syracuse, Egypt, Libya, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Israel, and Palestine, for just borders, and the list goes on. Every day, I pray for people in this diocese, mostly the clergy and families, who are suffering with disease, personal hurt, and struggle. I pray for our parishes, sometimes caught in the web of fear and anxiety. Every day, I pray for this cathedral, all of you, Dean Tom and Deacon Jane. I am committed to standing with you and walking with you as we discover together who and what God is calling us to be and become. And perhaps it will be reckoned to us as righteousness. And I do this, why? Not because prayer is some kind of magic act that will deliver the answers to our questions on a platter. No. I pray this way because I too am called into a radical trust in God's future. It will probably not be what I imagine it to be. But what I do know is that you and I are called to be a part of its imagining with God. So, I imagine Israel and Palestine in peace. I imagine all of our troops home from war. I imagine this cathedral full of joy and hope, much as I see it in the wonderful pictures and images of life in this place in your splendid annual report. I see it as the Cathedral Chapter Institutes say, and I quote, a center of unity, influence, and mission. That is the future God is calling into being and with which we are called to participate as co-creators with God. There's nothing more exciting than that. The mother hen, the tender God with outstretched wings, is reaching out to us always, seeking to shelter us from our own human cruelties and self-destruction, and yes, sometimes even our own stupidity. And this is crucial, for we know that Jesus' vision of the kingdom is not when you and I get it all right and correct and all buttoned up. Jesus' vision, like Abram's, yet to be realized in Israel, is when all will worship the true God. That is what this cathedral is called to do and be above all else. And Psalm 27 today gives us the vision. Seeking God's face in the all-inspiring experience of worship in the temple. In this sublime song of that psalm about the beauty of the Lord, it is understood that worship must provide a crucible strong enough to contain with searing honesty all the brokenness of the world, including our own. And yet, we do so with the hope of the promise of God's future among us even now. This is what we are confirming Dick into today. This is what you and I have been baptized into. This, dear and beloved people of God at St. Paul's, is what and who we trust as we love one another into our new future together.